All right, guys, welcome back. Up next, we have our unannounced speaker, Soc. He's been involved for a couple years now. And actually, before he comes on stage, Anthony would like to have a word. So here you go.
Thanks, Herman. Okay, next guy up, haven't promoted him at all. Nobody here, or very few of you do, know who he is. Most of you don't. And I'm going to put pressure on him because I think he can do it. I think this is going to be the most unexpected surprise speech at the event. It's going to be right off the bat, hitting the home run, and I think potentially one of the best speeches ever given at the event. I have very high expectations, not to necessarily put that on him maybe, but just because I know him at this point and I know his ideas really well from talking to him in person over the past year and a half and from reading what he has to say on various forums we post on. His topic's going to be relationships and then a few other things branching off from that. And that sounds so generic, but this is like so contrary to what you see elsewhere in anything, in say general dating advice or even like hardcore PUA stuff. It's totally either not mentioned at all or it's complete opposite of what you see on the mainstream. So Soc, short for Socrates, is I think has very contrary ideas to what we accept on a very broad scale in society today, no matter where you go. The ideas are essentially right, by my judgment. I think they are outstanding, and if you apply them to your life and the context he gives you, it's me badass. So, with that said, welcome Soc to the stage. Thanks, man. Appreciate it coming.
Thanks. Hi, guys. I'm actually really pleased to be here, particularly proud from a number of reasons. My personal path has been kind of one in which I've stumbled, tried, failed, but it's one in which I was not satisfied with by maintaining the current patterns of behavior. And what I did is I decided to find other men, find friends, and to kind of put myself back together, to look at where I wanted my life to go, and to basically self-educate. And when I say self-educate, I mean steal. I took anything, everything, transferred information from one realm and put it into another. And that has been an evolving process. Some stuff that I started when I was very young to the current date. And it's been very insightful for me, and it's been successful. My name is Soc. It's short for Socrates. It's one of many names and identities that I go by and identify with, and that's really less important than who I am. Who I am is quite literally, as I stand here before you, I could be your father. More likely, I could be your older brother. Without a doubt, I could be your friend. But the bottom line is, and most importantly to me, is the fact that I can be you in many, many ways. I'm not an expert in my field. I'm not a commercial operator. I'm a ranked amateur. I've gotten good at what I do. I'm particularly proud of that. But the issue is that I try, I stumble, I make mistakes, and I evaluate those aspects, and I apply reasoning to what I do and some insight to what I've done and why. And today what I'm going to try to convince you guys of is that it's going to be a contrarian point of view. And for a lot of the men's organizations, men's community, is that there's some very, very strong positive aspects to interpersonal relationships with women. I'm going to use some really vulgar language. I'm going to talk about commitment. I'm going to talk about monogamy, all right? And I'm going to say them in positive aspects, all right? I will try to not use that so much. I'll use other terms that you're probably more frank with, but it's an aspect of the community I think fails in a number of ways. So a large portion of my speech today is literally going to be about the positive aspects on being in relationships with women, and that means a committed one. I'm going to be looking at several technical skills on relationship development, skills you're going to need in having relationships. And primarily those are going to be filtering screening abilities, your ability to create boundaries, and then the other interesting one is I'm going to talk about your brand identity, your social relationship brand. What are you offering to other women? What are you offering to those relationships with people you do have? Then I'm going to actually look on a very critical skill I think is essential, and that is the aspect of critical confrontations. The ability to actually have a confrontation that has positive results. There's ways in which to do that, there's ways not to do that. Trust me, I've made a lot of foul ones, okay? And so there's a lot of this is from experience. Then I'm going to move on from that, is that the aspect of being able to have relationships. At times you're going to need to know how to end them and then why to end them. And so we're going to cover that. And then for a little bonus and really kind of out there, I'm going to actually give a kind of a small brief talk and some very basic ideas on that very notion that's very taboo, on getting your ex-girlfriend back. Don't want to do it in every case. There are some positive aspects to do it and some things you're going to want to take into account on why and when to do certain aspects when you evaluate it. All right. Getting back to the main purpose of the talk is literally about the positive roles of interpersonal relationships and intimate relationships with women, particularly in committed relationships. Now, a lot of you are going to be younger. You can practice these skills without being in a relationship. You can actually practice having relationships without being in a committed one. You do it with your friends. You do it with your family. You do it with your coworkers, your bosses. Anybody you have that relationship with, these skills pertain. They're transferable skills. And if ultimately you want to have a relationship, you want to have a wife, you want to have a better quality life, having these skills in your pocket is vastly better than trying to learn it on the job under fire. Trust me, you're going to make vastly different decisions, different reactions, and you're going to behave differently in the heat of a moment. You don't want to be learning in that case because it's going to cost you dearly. And it's going to be more than emotional, it's going to be more than financial. It can change your life. And in many ways, behavioral patterns such as these affects greater society on a whole. How we go through life, interacting with people, reverberates through communities, it reverberates through societies. How we regard women, how we regard ourselves in culture as men and women, those relationships spawn off. And unfortunately, when I bring up the term spawning, we can also talk about children. You know, what are your relationships with children? What type of man were you for the mother of the child? What type of father were you to that child? And these are relationships that will then get projected. So a lot of times I'm going to be kind of flippant. I'm going to be derogatory in cases, but it does not mean I'm not being serious. The other aspect is, this is a serious aspect, but this should also be fun. It's probably one of the most important investments you're going to make in your life. All right? One of the most important aspects of being in a relationship is that you have to be in one to really understand them. No one can tell you what it's going to be like. You can't kind of project accurately what being in a relationship is truly like until you're in it. And on the community side, it'd be very much like a keyboard jockeyist telling you what's he going to do when he approaches a girl, what lines he's going to use, and how it's going to be scripted out. That's great for practice. It's good to have that idea and fallback. It's good to have a plan. But I'm telling you, the shit's going to hit the fan as soon as you get out there. You're going to make decisions, situations are going to change, contexts are going to change, anxieties are going to perform, and contexts in ways in which you're not going to be able to fathom or imagine are going to come up, and you're going to have to make decisions and react to certain aspects, judgment calls, so forth, that you're not going to be able to anticipate. And you're going to make errors. And the issue is you're going to want to have some practice in doing is maintaining these. The better proper skills you have, the better you're going to be able to perform. And they're fairly basic in many aspects. The other aspect to being in relationships, I think, is one of the biggest failures of the men's community. We focus in on getting the girl, but not what to do once you get her other than fucking her. And I think that is a terrible, terrible letdown, because I don't think that's what most people want. And it's why the men's population community groups tend to actually lose its members. Because one of the aspects is I don't think guys go out with the intent of actually going out and getting a girlfriend. They end up with one. Worse yet, they end up with a wife. You know, and then you find out not only do they end up with a wife, but they end up with a child, mortgage payments, everything else, and that doesn't work. And then you have catastrophic loss. You have, people are getting hurt. Another aspect on interpersonal relationships is it's going to be probably the second most important investment you make in your life. The first is what you're doing right now. You're investing in yourself, you're investing in your education, you're investing in your life, and developing those skills, getting exposed to different ideas, making connections with other people, other members of the community. These are very, very essential elements to your development, and these things are you control. Relationships you can also control. And there are going to be skills in which you're going to be able to filter out people, look for certain aspects, but ultimately you need to treat it like an investment, because ultimately it is. Your time, resources, energy, they're commodities. How you spend them connotates value. And I'd hate to have you sit down and not value yourself to the point that you just take what's handed to you, take what you're able to get. I think we should be able to look for certain things, enjoy our lives, enjoy other people's company, and actually look to get the best that we can for our value and our worth. And I think too many times men are sold short by not only themselves, culture and society are teaching you to sell yourself short. And I'll cover a little bit of that later on.